You may be shocked to know that hacking attacks happen once every 39 seconds in the United States. That means that by the time you finish brewing your favorite morning cup of joe, 8 victims have already been subject to hacker attacks. Although businesses and governments now devote more resources to cybersecurity than ever before, the hacking threat remains strong and seems to only be increasing.
The question is, how can companies protect themselves against hackers? We've all seen and heard of them: the phishing, social engineering, malware, and ransomware attacks. But how many of you would say that you're confident in preventing, identifying, and protecting against such attacks? What do you have in place to help fortify your personal and company's defenses and protect valuable information? In just the past decade, we've seen a significant increase in cyber attacks in the United States alone. In 2014, Yahoo experienced one of the largest data breaches in history, with over 1 billion user accounts compromised. In 2017, millions of social security numbers and thousands of credit card numbers were taken from Equifax. And the ransomware attack on Colonial Pipeline in May of this year that affected nearly the entire east coast of the United States is a sobering example of how serious these attacks can be. Not to mention Facebook, Microsoft, and Marriott, who have also become victims to cybersecurity attacks and data breaches in just the last few years. In fact, if you want to see a visualization of the world's biggest data breaches and hacks, you can check out the site Information is Beautiful and check out their visualizations page, which has a collection of beautiful graphs and charts which organize data into easy to understand infographics. Not only do data breaches affect the integrity of a company, but these cyber attacks are costly. The average cost of a data breach is about $4 million. But we've seen attacks that cost companies hundreds of millions of dollars. This is due to loss of customers, loss of revenue during downtime, to the cost of fixing the issue, and fines associated with these data breaches. For example, non-compliance with the GDPR can cost upwards of $24 million. When you consider the modern state of our data-driven lifestyles and business models, it's no surprise that hackers and threat actors try to capitalize on every vulnerability. Everything we work with, including our own employees, is a potential weak point for a data breach. Hackers may attempt to inflict harm, garner payment, or capture confidential information to use for a future purpose. With this in mind, individuals and companies must be vigilant to learn how to prevent hacking. Before you can adequately protect yourself, it's important to understand the different types of hacking attacks. Movies have led us to believe that hacking is purely a brute force technique to acquire information. But the reality is that most of the time, it's much more subtle and sinister than that. Social engineering is a tactic used by hackers and threat actors to manipulate a user into disclosing sensitive information that the hacker considers valuable. So in this instance, they're hacking a person instead of a software. But a person is like a biological extension of a system, and therefore a potential access point. Social engineering is especially tricky because it's not often all that obvious. These threat actors will use information that they've picked up from various sources to put together a story or a profile of someone you feel like you can trust. They may even pose as someone you think you know. Threat actors may approach you through email, social media, over a dating app, or even in person. Phishing isn't as fun as it may sound, and in this case, you're the catch. Phishing attacks are attacks that attempt to manipulate users into exposing or sharing confidential data. This is a technique often used by social engineers. Usually these attacks come through email, but they can come through many other communication channels as well. These often look like messages coming from a boss, coworker, or some authority figure, such as another business. And the goal of these attacks are to phish for information that can be used to gain access to more data, such as account information. Spear phishing, which is a type of phishing attempt, will use information very specific to you, which makes it a target attack and much more convincing. Look out for these attacks, especially in emails and phone calls. You may have also noticed an uptick in spam messages coming through text, such as your Amazon package needs confirmation, or there's an issue with your account, click the link to fix the problem. In fact, these threat actors will even prey on your knowledge of cybersecurity and word their messages to convince you that your account is being hacked. And it is. Well, it's about to be anyway. Ransomware is one of the most crippling types of hacking attacks to organization cybersecurity, and it's on the rise. This strategy can render organizations useless, and it can prove to be extremely expensive to solve. Ransomware is a program or a virus that seizes control of a device and allows the hacker to gain access to the information and files. These attacks often come in the form of a link that you click in an email, on a website, or even in a text. Ransomware will hold a company or individual's files hostage in exchange for a payment. However, there's no guarantee that the hacker will release control of the software or files once the ransom has been paid. And lastly, but maybe the most important, there are insider threats. Insider threats can be people inside of the company who have access to privileged files and have intentions to harm the company. But even more often, they can be untrained employees who have no ill intent, but are merely victims of hacking attacks. So, what can you do to prevent yourself or your company from falling victim to an attack? Education is your strongest defense against hacking. Train yourself and your employees to understand what the different types of hacking are and how to identify them before it's too late. Human error is the main contributing factor for hacking attacks, with 95% of attacks being traced back to some kind of human error. So the better you and your employees are educated, the stronger your defenses will be. Remember, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Look for the telltale signs of a hacker. They will often use language that promotes urgency, flattery, and misspelled words or odd grammar. Check and preview links before clicking on them. If you can see the entire URL, check that it follows a standard URL format and that nothing is misspelled. For example, hackers may tweak the spelling of a website slightly in an effort to trick you, like spelling facebook.com with too many O's. You can also double check by hovering your mouse over the link and previewing the destination URL in the lower left-hand corner of the window. This will indicate where the link will be redirecting you to and help you make a more informed decision. You can also run a suspicious link through a website called VirusTotal, which will check the link or file to see if it's malicious or not. Just be careful to not click on the link you're trying to verify. Additionally, report suspicious activity. If you suspect something, say something. Report the incident to your security team before taking any other action. Lastly, if someone is posing to be someone that you know, you can always reach out to that person using a method that you know is already legitimate to confirm whether or not they were actually trying to contact you. Never, and I mean never, click on a suspicious link in an email or text. I can promise you, you'll regret it. Something that I feel is worth mentioning here is that it's also helpful to have an MFA in place. Multifactor authentication and encryption are said to be one of the biggest obstacles for hackers. An MFA is the process of a user or device providing two or more different types of proofs of control associated with a specific digital identity in order to gain access to the associated permissions, rights, privileges, and memberships. This is like when you go to the DMV and they want a photo ID and your social security number. The more keys needed to open a lock, the more difficult it is for someone to collect all the keys and therefore have access to what you're trying to protect. That being said, no MFA is unhackable, but it does provide a deep moat around your data castle. Which reminds me, don't forget to use different passwords for different accounts. I know it may seem annoying, but using the same password for every account is like giving a hacker a master key. I recommend using a password vault like LastPass or 1Password to store all of your different passwords. and password vaults like LastPass are also protected by an MFA process. Finally, don't forget to have systems in place to help guard against these attacks. Every system, software, or tool you use is a potential weak point for a hacker to gain access to your company's information. If the tools you use to collect, store, and transfer data are not secure, your information isn't secure. For example, at FormAssembly, we're constantly improving and evolving our security measures in order to provide our customers with a data collection platform that they can trust. Our security and compliance team is dedicated to protecting both customers and employees from these costly attacks. Regular communication, reminders, and training help keep these vulnerabilities top of mind. And monthly security training for our employees provides concrete examples of how social engineering looks in the real world, ensuring that our team members never get caught off guard. In order to prevent vulnerabilities, we take several necessary precautions to minimize leaked data. So if you collect data with FormAssembly, you should know that we use top-of-the-line data security centers and a web application firewall to protect against web attacks. FormAssembly is also compliant with all of these standards listed here. If you want to learn more details about how we protect your data, visit our security page. I'll drop a link for that in the description. The rise of hacking attacks may seem a bit scary, but if you're prepared, you can stay protected. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you'd like to learn more about data collection best practices as well as other tips and tricks, please consider subscribing to our channel. You can learn more about FormAssembly and our mission to help protect your data by visiting the link in the description below. Don't worry, it's safe. Thanks for watching, and happy hacker hunting.
you